Hello, friends, and welcome. This is episode number 30. We have the show lined up, and we have one shot to make it good. Will it be? Will it not be? Oh my! Yes, it is. Welcome to the Convince Me Show. Yes, welcome in, everybody. 30 episodes. Here we are. Andy Rutherford, joined as always, Mr. Casey Elrod, Mr. Brian Bennett. Gentlemen, how is it going this week?
In your life, have you heard as terrible opener as that? That was bad. It makes me want to go beat somebody with a 7-iron, break their windshield out.
Sounds like it's better than our first one.
This both accurate. Anyway, welcome in, everybody. This is the Convince Me Show, and this week we are going to look ahead to this weekend to a tradition unlike any other, except completely non-traditional because we're having it in November because, 2020. But it is Masters Week. It's time for some excitement in your life. I know absolutely nothing of any note or exciting has happened in this country within the last week or so. Everybody's just bored out of their minds with nothing to talk about. Well, this week we're changing it because we're hitting the links. And before we get too deep into that, just a few program notes here for you. We are recording this show a little bit early, a day early. Next week's show is a pre-recorded show that we recorded a couple weeks ago with special guest Alex Anderson. It will be off the cuff number 2, and that show will go completely off the rails.
I'm about to say off the cuff and off the rails. You kind of stuff like that.
The show is probably terrible, but terrible in a sense that you'll want to watch it. We are taking a 2-week recording hiatus because unless it happens before next week, I will be probably getting called ugly names while my wife gives birth to our child. But so it'll be a 2-week recording break for us, but it won't be a break for you guys. We do have an episode in the can coming for you next week. Be on the lookout for that, and we will be back with lively, relevant conversation in 2 weeks. So if something big happens in the next week and we don't reference it on the next show, that's why. Of course, you can keep up with all of our happenings on all of our socials. Facebook.com/Convince Me Show. That's where you get the live previews. That's our most active site. Twitter @Convince Me Show. It's where you can occasionally vote on polls. Keep up with us over there. Instagram, nothing special, but you might as well follow us, Convince Me Show. And then we are on YouTube. It's where you get every episode in its entirety in a video format, tinyurl.com/Convince Me Show. All right, guys. Like I said, it's Masters Week in November, as strange as that is. And when we look at the Masters, would you like
the real Fall Classic? This is the real Fall Classic right here.
No, it's not. You will not besmirch the name of baseball. Anyway, a tradition unlike any other, completely untraditional this week. But when we look at the Masters, when we look at golf in general, really, when we think about the greats, there are a handful of greats we can talk about, but really it comes down to 2. And it's those 2 we're going to talk about this evening. It is the Golden Bear, Jack Nicklaus, being represented by Mr. Bennett, and Mr. Eldrick, Tiger Woods, being represented by Mr. Casey Elrod.
One quick point, Rod. Is there anyone that you know that has been the strongest defender of Tiger Woods through his peaks and valleys than this guy right here?
Maybe his caddy.
No, his caddy laughed him.
No, finally.
probably the only person that likes him that deeply.
Would you be his caddy, Elrod?
I would.
Hmm.
I would.
You'd be fired mid-tourney. You might make it to the second round.
I couldn't make it up those hills. I'd want a golf cart.
Yeah. But anyway, so let's just get right into it and decide who's going first today. Does everybody have their trusty pen and paper?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right, here we go. In the spirit of the Masters. Of course, these two men have won the Masters tournament more than anybody else. Jack has 6 green jackets. Tiger has 5. Here's what I want to look at. It's an Augusta specific question to determine who goes first here. Jack Nicklaus has played 162 official rounds at Augusta. Tiger has played 83. Rounding to the nearest 100ths, what is the average score of Tiger and Jack for a round at Augusta? Closest without going over to the nearest 100ths. The average score.
Both of them together?
Yes, like Tiger's average. I took Tiger's average, I took Jack's average, and I found out what the average of both of them was. So it's a single. I took Tiger's average times the number of rounds he's played. And then I took
Okay.
Jack's average times the number of rounds he's played, got the number, divided it by the total rounds they've both played. So it's for one golfer.
I got
Why is there so much math on this show?
you. I was told there was no math. Okay, I'm locked in. I'm in for the win.
You gonna
Without
set
going
that
over. All right.
All right,
bet? What we got?
69.05.
Bennett going real low.
Whoa!
2.04.
If we're just going off Jack Nicklaus, we would, but Tiger jacked it up a little bit.
We got
Ironically enough, their average is under par, but barely. 71.63 is their average score.
Thanks,
Well,
Tiger.
So Elrod, you
Going first.
You were going first. You will tee
I'll
off.
take the honors, sir. I have the honors tonight.
You have the honors, and we have the timer back. We're going to get this one out pretty quickly like we did last week. So you have 2 minutes for your opening statement. You can start now.
Right. If you decide tonight this issue on total major wins, as of right now, I lose. If you decide this tonight on who has been more faithful to his wife, I lose, obviously, with Tiger. Here is the thing. Tiger Woods is the most clutch athlete we have seen in our lifetimes. And I'm including one Michael Jeffrey Jordan in that statement. In golf, I'm not a very good golfer, but there's one thing I know. Putting is the most critical skill in golf. Tiger Woods is regarded as the most clutch putter of all time by most people that know the game of golf. At age 44, he was the best iron player on tour, and he's been the best iron player for the majority of his career. He's won 82 PGA Tour events, which is the most all time, which is 9 more than Jack. We'll talk more about this tonight, but peak Tiger Woods is better than peak Jack Nicklaus at his prime. It is very rare that you see an athlete that is hyped up when he was young exceed those expectations later on in life, but Tiger blew it out of the park. He blew it out of the park. We're going to talk about the business of golf tonight, how the purses in terms of the winnings were before Tiger and after Tiger. We're going to talk about what he did to the golf courses, to the equipment, to physical fitness. Any measuring stick that you have for Tiger, Tiger exceeds Jack Nicklaus. Even at this point, he may not have the majors yet, but every single measuring stick, Tiger is ahead. He changed the way the golf is played. He changed the look of the game. He elevated the game of golf to every corner of the world. And some people may say, saved the game of golf in the late 90s to where it was. So we'll talk more about this tonight.
All right. Mr. Bennett, your 2 minutes starts right now.
Right. What makes someone the greatest at their sport? Is it their wins? You could say that. Is it their championships? You could definitely say that. Or is it the records that they hold? That would be true too. All of these would be factors you could consider, but ultimately, you must take into account their consistency throughout their career, how they consistently play at a high level year in and year out. And when it comes to golf, Jack Nicklaus is the standard of consistency. Not only does he have the 18 major victories, which we've kind of talked about a little before, which is most all time, he also has 19 second place finishes, which basically makes him a major threat every time he tees off. He won his first Master in 63. Then he won his second in 65, making him the youngest to win their second. And then he wins his last one at the age of 46. The greatest golfer in the world goes by one nickname, and that's the Golden Bear. And if you think that it's Tiger or any other golfer who's been the greatest in the sport, then you don't know Jack.
Nice. Very nice. And with time to spare, that's what I like. If that's what you like, Facebook viewers, you're going to have to come back tomorrow to check out the rest of it. That will end our Facebook portion of this show. For those on the YouTubes and the podcasts, we will be right back. And we are back. So we're looking at Tiger, we're looking at Jack. Bennett, I'm going to start with you on this one. Obviously, these guys got their start somewhere. They weren't born with a 7-iron in their hand, although something tells me Tiger was pretty close to it. But these guys had to start somewhere. They didn't get their PGA card before they got their driver's license. Tell me about their time before hitting the tour. We're going to call this before the tour. Tell me about their life before the tour, and because there's a lot of years in that time range, I'll give you gentlemen 3 minutes on this one, and Bennett, your time starts now.
So, Jack William Nicklaus was born January 21st, 1940, in Columbus, Ohio, to parents Charlie and Helen. Now, Jack, his dad, he's the one that introduced him to golf at a fairly young age. His dad being a pretty fine athlete himself. He played football for Ohio State and played a little bit of semi-pro football. But anywho, so he takes him out on the golf course. And as far as Gump would say, Jack looked like a duck in water playing golf. He shot a 51 on 9 holes at a Scioto Country Club at the age of 10. And this was the very first time that he had ever picked up a club and played golf. During his youth, he competed successfully in football, baseball, tennis, and track. But where he really excelled would be in golf. He was tutored by the club pro, Jack Grout. And Jack would go on to become a golf prodigy, as we would know. He won his first of 5 straight Ohio State junior titles at the age of 12. And at 13 became that year's youngest qualifier into the U.S. Juniors Amateur. He earned a handicap of +3 at the age of 13, which is the lowest in the Columbus area, and won the Tri-State High School Championship at the age of 14 with a round of 68. He also recorded his first hole-in-one at tournament play this same year at 14 years old. By the time he was 15, he shot a 66 at the Scioto Country Club, which was an amateur course record, and qualified for his first U.S. amateur. He won the Ohio Open in 56 at the age of 16, competing against professionals. All in all, he had won 27 events in the Ohio area from age 10 to age 17. He attended Upper Arlington High School, whose nickname and mascot are coincidentally named the Golden Bears. He was honorable mention, All-Ohio selection in basketball, and received some recruiting interest from college programs. But after high school, he elected to stay close to home and attend Ohio State University, where he continued his golf career and won the U.S. Amateur title in 1959 and 1961, as well as the NCAA championship in 61. And a sign for great things to come for Jack, he finished second at the 1960 U.S. Open with an amateur record score of 282. He turned pro in November of 1961, so he began his first full professional season in 1962, where he was named PGA Tour Rookie of the Year, and the rest, as we know, is history.
Well, that is depressing to know a 10-year-old Jack Nicklaus, the first time he picked up a club, shot better than I do ever. That's depressing.
That's true. This is true.
Yeah. Yet I always hang with you, Elrod. How is that?
No comment.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Elrod, 3 minutes. Tell me about Tiger before the tour now.
Eldrick Taunt Woods was born in December of 1975. He was born to a lady from Thailand who's, everybody knows Tiger Woods' father, Earl. Earl met Tiger's mother over in Vietnam when he was in the war over there. Tiger's nickname comes from one of his father's friends that he fought alongside in Vietnam. His name was Tiger. So when Tiger was born, Earl wanted to nickname his son after his friend. Tiger grows up in Orange County, California. He is the child prodigy in golf. Jack has a lot of acclaim when he was young, but he does not come anywhere close to the awards Tiger Woods got when he was young. Tiger Woods was so hyped when he was young. He was on the Mike Douglas show. A lot of people see the video of him putting against Bob Hope in 1978, and he beats Bob Hope at age 3. And also at age 3, he shoots a 48 over 9 holes at age 3 at the Navy base near in San Diego, where his father was stationed. He broke 80 at the age of 8. He won the Junior World Championships 6 times. He defeated his father for the first time, who was no slouch at golf, at age 11. Once he defeated his father never beat him again at age 11. Tiger beat him every single time. In 1991, he was the Southern California Amateur Player of the Year. He dominates the junior circuit in golf in the early 90s. He wins multiple U.S. amateurs awards. He goes to Stanford. He's recruited. Every college in the country wants him because of his acclaim in Southern California. He goes to Stanford. They're just coming off an NCAA championship with Tiger and Nota Begay. They win the championship. He wins the individual championship, and he's coined the nickname Urkel by his fellow Stanford teammates. In 1996, he turns pro, and he gets the most lucrative contract ever from Nike and Titleist in the game of golf. He wins another U.S. Amateur Championship. He's the NCAA Freshman of the Year. And this right here is what catapults him to the PGA Tour level and his eventual successes that he has.
All right. Even more depressing. 3-year-old Tiger could beat me. And even more impressive, both of you coming in under 3 minutes. I give you a little buffer. You don't take advantage. I appreciate it. The listeners appreciate it. If I were arguing this week, it probably would not be the same. But we're going back to 2 minutes on this next topic. And in this next topic, I want you to tell me The good and the bad. Tell me about. All right, we'll start with you. Tell me about Tiger's game. Tell me about the strengths of his game, but also I want to know about the flaws. What are the weaknesses in Tiger's game? Strength and weaknesses. 2 minutes. Go.
Let's start with the good. Tiger Woods is well known as the greatest clutch putter of all time. Look no further at what he did in '08 U.S. Open, needing a 12-footer to tie Rocco Mediate to get to a 18-hole playoff. Look at what he did at Valhalla, needing another putt to force another playoff. Look at the 2005 Masters. It's not a putt, it's a chip, but it's within a putt range. Consistently known as if you need a putt, you want Tiger Woods over that putt, whether it's a President's Cup, a Ryder Cup, or individual match. You want Tiger Woods. His mental fortitude. No one in their prime is more focused, has that killer instinct than Tiger Woods in the game of golf. He would just turn people to ash with his mental fortitude. If you look at his scoring average in 2000, which we'll talk about more about later, 67.79. It's the lowest PGA. It's the lowest PGA scoring average of all time. Weaknesses: driver. Tiger's never been a very accurate driver, even in his early years. He was 25 or 30 yards ahead of everybody down the fairway, but he could be in a porta potty or he could be in the middle of the fairway. You really don't know where he was going to be with his driver. And it still is his Achilles heel. He has a double cross. Sometimes he doesn't know if he's going right or left. But Tiger is the ultimate escape artist on the golf course. Some of his best memories is him going over trees or over a structure. He's a good iron player. He's not been at 43, just 2 years ago, he's probably the best iron player on tour. But over the course of his career, he hasn't been the best. His wedge play, he's not Phil Mickelson with his wedges. But another weakness of his game is his physical shape. Those big drives early on in his career, led to a lot of the injuries and a lot of suffering he's having right now.
All right. Bennett, same thing. Golden Bear, strengths and weaknesses. 2 minutes. Go.
Well, for strengths, he's constantly among the longest and straightest hitter in PGA Tour history. In 1963, he won the longest drive contest at the PGA Championship with a drive of 341 yards, 17 inches. That's a record that lasted for more than 20 years. He's got like an upright swing, which allows him to hit the ball high with a slight fade. And he really became one of the longest controlled drivers in the game's history, as well as being pretty good as a long iron player as well. His arsenal was designed in a way to conquer the likes of your narrow fairways, your deep rough, and your fast greens. And these are all things that generally characterize these major championship courses. As skilled as he was with the club, perhaps his biggest strength was the mental aspect of the game for his course management skills. It's been said that his ability to concentrate and gather himself for decisive moments is what really separated him from his peers. Gary Player, who's widely considered one of the greatest golfers of all time himself, say that Nicklaus had the greatest mind that the game had ever known. And as for weaknesses, he's not really known for being an outstanding putter. He's often able to make important putts when they were needed. Also, too, he's known as a conservative player at times, especially on the greens. He would often choose to be less aggressive and make sure of an easy two putt. And he even addresses this in this autobiography book that he wrote. He said that he was a fine two putter, but sometimes too defensive, too concerned about three putting, to go for putts that I probably should have gone for.
All right. So that's the strengths, that's the weaknesses of their games. As we all know, there are, during the golf season, during the PGA season, pretty much every weekend, there's an event. But really, to the most casual golf viewer, they're not watching the Joe Schmo Open in Austin, Texas, in the middle of the end of June. I mean, they're not, but what you can count on is people turning in are the ones that matters. I'm talking about the majors. In March or April, they're tuning in to Augusta, unless it's 2020, and then it's November. But the Masters, the U.S. Open, the Players Championship, the major tournaments, and these two men each have a pretty decent amount of major tournaments. They've both been able to turn it on when it matters. And since they do have so much, I will give you 3 minutes on this topic. And Bennett, I'll start with you. Tell me about Jack and his performances in these major tournaments.
Well, it's like I've talked about before. He has a record 18 major championships, but how did he rack up so many wins? We're going to take a minute or two or three, and we're going to find out how he racked up so many of these wins. He won the Open championship 3 times in 66, 70, and 78, and finished runner up another 7 times for the Open championship. He won the U.S. Open 4 times, including his very first full season as a professional in 62. And he would go on to win again in 67, 72, and 1980. He owns the record for the most consecutive Opens started at 44, dating from 1957 all the way up to 2000, which is pretty dang impressive. As far as the PGA Championship, he has 5 wins there, which is a tie for the most wins, 63, 71, 73, 75, and 80, as well as a record 4 runner-up finishes. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Masters, which he has won a record 6 times, 63, 65, 66, 72, 75, and 86, as well as 4 runner-up finishes. Nicklaus and Tiger are really the only 2 golfers to have won the Masters in 3 separate decades. He owns a record 22 top 10 finishes and is the oldest player to win the Masters at 46 years old in 82 days. And for 24 straight seasons from 1960 through 1983, he made at least 1 top 10 finish in a major championship. This is also a record. He holds the record for the most runner-up finishes at 19. He holds the record for the most top 5 finishes in a major championship with 56. So really, you look, he's got 18 major championships, and he has 19 runner-up championships. So not only does this make him the majors greatest of all time, this also makes him the majors runner-up greatest of all time.
Nice. Elrod, tell me about Tiger on the big stage at the majors.
15 major championships to date. He's still going. We got a lot of golf to be played. Interestingly enough, Tiger Woods has won all of the majors of Jack Nicklaus's last majors. Like when Jack Nicklaus' last Masters in 2005, Tiger Woods won. The last U.S. Open at Pebble Beach, Tiger won that one. The last Open at St. Andrews that Jack Nicklaus appeared in, Tiger won. And the last PGA Championship at, I believe that was at Valhalla. Tiger won that one too. So Jack needs to come out of retirement so Tiger can win some more majors. If you look at number of majors won, Tiger's won 5 Masters, 4 PGAs, 3 U.S. Opens, 3 Open Championships. He made 39 consecutive cuts in the majors from the 1996 U.S. Open to the 2006 Masters. He had 8 consecutive top 10s in majors that stretch from 99 to 2001. I'm going to talk a little bit about individual different majors that he won. 97 Masters. This was his coming out party. He posted 18 under par 270, won by a record of 12 strokes. This is the coming out party. He doesn't win another major for 2 more years, but how can we talk about Tiger Woods and not talk about the 2000 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach? 15 shots he lapped the field. It was the largest margin of victory ever in a major championship, and Sports Illustrated called it the greatest performance in the history of golf. 2 months later, at the Open Championship at St. Andrews, another great performance, 19 under par. This was the lowest ever at the Open. This started momentum for the Tiger Slam, as we know. At the 2000 PGA Championship at Valhalla, we talked a little bit about this with the putt that he had on 18. He wins that one. He goes and wins the 2001 Masters. This 4 consecutive majors for Tiger. It wasn't in the calendar year, but he held all 4 trophies at one time. I want to talk about the 2006 British Open. We talked about how Tiger has some issues with the driver. Well, Tiger Woods won a major championship without taking the driver out of his bag the entire week at Hoyle Lake. The fairways were completely dried out. They were fast. Tiger hit his patented 2-iron stinger the entire week and lapped the field at Hoyle Lake. 2008 U.S. Open, he wins a U.S. Open championship, the most grueling championship of them all, on one leg. On one leg. In that 2019 Masters, his most recent win, I believe that this was the greatest comeback in the history of golf. I also believe it's the greatest story in the history of golf. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. So that Tiger Woods is a lot of people are good at the U.S. Open, not so good at the British Open, but Tiger Woods is consistently good at major championship.
All right. A little over. You need to tighten that up. Come on. We got to go here. Just kidding. All right. Obviously, both of these guys have had incredible careers. Tiger's obviously still ongoing. But you know, they say with a chain, it's only as good as its weakest link. And I'm going to fit in a rudism here. And I'm going to tie this to professional wrestling because what else do I know? Not a lot. But there's a saying in wrestling, who did he ever beat? You can win all you want, but if you're playing schlubs like me, it doesn't matter. If you're playing, or I'd say you go out and you beat me, which you have a hard time doing, I want to point out.
I don't know.
That's not near as impressive as if you went out with a tour pro and won. The level of competition, that's what I want to hear about. Tell me about the guys when Tiger's on the field, when Tiger's out playing. Tell me about the other guys around him playing in 2 minutes.
Yeah, so one of the knocks on Tiger Woods in terms of this argument with Jack Nicklaus is, Jack Nicklaus had a lot more competition. And that argument does have some validity, but let's look at it closer. In the early years with Tiger Woods, in the late 90s, early 2000s, you had Phil Mickelson. You had Ernie Els, Vijay Singh. These are all Hall of Famers. Now, he didn't have, in terms of the depth, in terms of Hall of Famers, he didn't have as many of those caliber players playing against him than Jack Nicklaus did in his early career. But later on in Tiger Woods' career, the script is flipped. If you look at today, like this Masters tournament this week, Tiger's having to go against Brooks Koepka. He's having to go against George Spieth, Bryson DeChambeau, who's bombing the drives 400 yards. Dustin Johnson. The field right now that he's going against, it leaps in bounds above any field that Jack Nicklaus ever played against. Now, in those early years, you can't see that. But Tiger's presence and Tiger's influence and his legacy is these young guns that are coming up right now. So Tiger's really a victim of his own success. He created these monsters that's coming up right now. And he beat them last year at the Masters. So there's no reason to think that he can do it again at this year's Masters. He knows the course very well. But in terms of competition, Jack's competition over the course of his career may be a little bit better. But as it sits right now, the competition that Tiger is facing is leaps and bounds above anything Jack Nicklaus has ever dealt with.
All right. Bennett, tell me about what Jack Nicklaus had to deal with. What was his level of competition like?
Well, he competed during golf's golden age. This is when some of the greatest talent golf has ever seen played the game. During his time, he had to go up against the likes of Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, Lee Trevino, Billy Casper, and Tom Watson. All of these guys are members of the Hall of Fame. He faced some really tough competition all the time. Admittedly, the depth of talent today probably does exceed that of Jack's time. However, very few of Tiger's competition has really stepped up during the majors, and only two have more than three major victories. That's Phil and Ernie Els. Nicholas, on the other hand, played with Gary Player, who has nine majors, Tom Watson, who has eight, and Arnold Palmer, who has seven, and Lee Trevino, who has six. So, with guys like that, competition's fierce. If you're not on your A game, these guys are going to destroy you. They're going to embarrass you out there, especially out there in the majors. So, when you take in consideration the Hall of Fame top caliber that he faced, and the fact that he won 18 majors and finished. He had double-digit finishes against these players in the majors. That's pretty remarkable. And had he not faced such tough competition as he did back then, maybe some of those second place finishes that I've talked about become first place finishes, and he adds to his major championship trophies in his trophy case.
Very, very interesting. All right, Bennett, last subtopic we have here. 2 minutes. Tell me, well, I guess at this point, what is the legacy of Jack Nicklaus and how he impacted the game, the world? What's his legacy?
The legacy of Jack Nicklaus is ingrained throughout the entire sport of golf. Not only does he serve as a inspiration to golf enthusiasts of all ages. A quick Google search will show a 14-year-old Tiger Woods in his room, reclined on his bed, reading a golf book with at least two visible Jack Nicklaus posters on his wall. More so, more so than the inspiration that Jack has served. He's a huge ambassador of the game, and he designs courses and promotes golf all throughout the world. Jack, along with his design company, they had 299 courses open for play by the year 2005, which roughly translates to 1% of all of the golf courses in the world. He has 12 courses that are featured in Golf Digest's 75 best golf resorts in North America. He's also written several golf books, and he's produced several video games. One golf book you may have heard of is called Golf My Way. This book is considered to be one of the best instructional golf books of all time. He continues to manage the Memorial Tournament, which is a PGA Tour golf tournament founded in '76 by Jack Nicklaus, and is played on a Nicklaus designed golf course in Dublin, Ohio. Outside of golf, him and his wife Barbara, they serve as honorary chairman and active chairwoman of the Nicklaus Children's Healthcare Foundation, North Palm Beach, Florida. This foundation provides valuable programs and services free of charge to more than 4,000 hospitalized children and their families. So, to summarize this, I say all that to say that one would be hard pressed to find an individual who's done more and meant more to the game of golf than the Golden Bear.
Elrod, obviously Tiger, still active. His book, for the most part, is still being written, although I think we could say the core part of that book has probably already ended, or maybe it hasn't. What, at this point, if it ended today for Tiger, what is his legacy?
Tiger Woods' biggest legacy, right, I believe, is the generation of golfers that have come up, the McIlroys, the Spieths, the Koepkas, that took up the game of golf because they saw him on television in the late 90s, early 2000s. These people are the same age as us, and they wanted to be just like Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was such a marketable star in the 90s, early 2000s. Everything he touched was gold. You had the boom of the internet. It was just a perfect storm for him to get the game of golf in the early 90s. He talked about the golden age of golf in the 60s and 70s. The early 90s, mid 90s was a terrible age for the game of golf. The ratings were down. You had Greg Norman, you had Faldo. That's about it. You didn't really have any stars. Tiger Woods in the 90s saved the game of golf in terms of its TV share. His legacy is breaking racial divides. It was unimaginable for an African American to be a golf star. There was one or two before him, but he broke this glass ceiling for African Americans in the game of golf. Look at his records. Bennett talked about Jack Nicklaus designing golf courses. Jack Nicklaus has made a lot of coin off designing golf courses, and Tiger Woods is trying to get into this mode as well now. He's designed 2 recent golf courses, the Blue Jack National in Houston and Paynes Valley in Missouri. He's trying to get a U.S. Open on one of his courses. His legacy, like you said, it's still being written right now. We don't know where it winds up. If Tiger Woods catches Jack Nicklaus in majors, this is going to just add fuel to this debate on who is the better golfer of all time. There was a time in the early 90s or the late 90s, early 2000s where it was a foregone conclusion that Tiger was going to overtake Jack. Injuries, personal choices kind of came in the way, but it, like you said, it's open book right now.
2 things I want to point out real quick that are related. One, I just want to make a statement. Second one, I want you to kind of address for just a second, Elrod. The first one is Tiger Woods has inspired a lot of people. Someone you didn't mention are the gentlemen of Steel Panther, who want to be just like Tiger Woods. But on a related note, the incident that you've alluded to, and the subsequent fall from grace before, possibly being resurrected last year. How has that tarnished his legacy? How much has it tarnished it?
In the late, early first decade that we had, it was a tremendous blemish. This Tiger Woods before the scandal was Teflon. He was the golden child. Any Nike, any major sponsor wanted Tiger Woods. When it came out, the level of his infidelity, it sent him back with the sponsors, with the public. But even though this was a self-inflicted wound, the fact that him coming back from all the injuries, from his infidelity, this is just adds up. This is the most American story of all time. This is about America being the land of second chances. America loves a comeback story. And Tiger winning the Masters last year, after everything that's happened, he's apparently made nice with his ex-wife. He's a tremendous father figure to his 2 children. He does have a longtime girlfriend now. This is the redemption story, and that's what we love here in this country.
All right. Bennett, I would address the Jack Nicklaus controversy, but I'm not aware of any. So with that being said, closing arguments, Mr. Elrod, 3 minutes. Tell me why my child, if she was awake right now, would be singing Backstreet Boys right now. Tell me.
Tell me.
Anyway, tell me why in 3 minutes Tiger Woods is better than Jack Nicklaus.
We discussed this with one another before, right? And you always come back on the majors. I know that's going to be, you're going to weigh heavily tonight on the majors. I will submit this. If Tiger Woods wins the Fall Classic Masters, this week, giving him 2 in a row. That gives him 16 major championships. He's 2 shy of Jack. But if he wins 2 Masters in a row with this field, with this competition, it will be the greatest accomplishment in the history of sports. With his comeback story, with the competition, people driving the ball. DeChambeau average drive 330 yards right now. Tiger Woods, the script has been flipped on Tiger. Tiger's hitting the ball 40 or 45 yards behind Bryson when he was hitting the ball 30 yards ahead of everybody in the late 90s at the Masters. So this is going to really showcase his game this week. But besides that, Tiger Woods has a chance right now to get on a roll. Late in his career, in less than 5 months, there's going to be another Masters. If you look forward to the championships next year, PGA Championship is going to be at Kiowa Island. He's had some success. He hasn't won there before, but it's a course he likes. And the U.S. Open is going to be at Torrey Pines, a place he has dominated. The last time it was there, he won on 1 leg. Let's see what he can do on 2 legs now. But if you decide this on majors tonight, right, I ask Your Honor that you take this under advisement until June 2021 after Torrey Pines, because I believe there is a good chance that Tiger Woods will have 16 or 17 majors by then. I think he either wins this week or I think he wins in April at the Masters. One thing that will hinder Tiger thrives off the crowd. Tiger loves the crowd. The Tiger roar at Augusta. You're not going to have that this week. And he thrives off of that. So I'm not sure if he will win this week, but I'm definitely sure if the crowds are back in 2021, he'll win Augusta. If you look at his wins, he leads in wins. If you look at the worldwide impact that he's had on the game of golf, he saved the game of golf, TV-wise. There's one last thing I want to leave you with, right? In terms of what he's done for the business of golf. In 2007, Tiger topped the PGA money list of $10.9 million. If jumping back 10 years prior to that, Tom Lehman had the money list, $1 million. $1 million. The 130th ranked player in the world had $164,000 in earnings. That same person, $800,000. People can make a good living at golf these days if they win a golf tournament. It can change their life. Before Tiger, before he got the huge money into golf, it was a struggle if you're just a PGA Tour player. I mean, it was a struggle going tournament to tournament. So Tiger, with what he's done for the game of golf, money-wise, TV-wise, player-wise, he just has had more of an impact than Jack Nicklaus has.
Points deducted for going nearly 30 seconds over.
I'll give Bennett 3 minutes. How about that?
You had 3 minutes and took
3.5 minutes. I'll give him 3.5 minutes.
All right, Bennett. In 3 minutes, feel free to go a little over in the spirit of fairness if you need to. Tell me why the Golden Bear is better than Tiger.
Nicklaus holds the record for most top 10 finishes in a major championship with 73. He holds the record for the most top 5 finishes in a major championship with 56. And like I've talked about before, he owns the record for the most runner-up finishes with 19 and the most majors with 18. This is the most that any player has ever won in their career. He has been named the greatest golfer / athlete by a whole slew of reputable sources such as Sports Illustrated, Golf Magazine, Associated Press, Golf Week, Golf World, PGA Tour, and Golf Web, ESPN, the British Broadcasting Company, and Today's Golfer. He was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame in the inaugural class of 1974. He received the Vince Lombardi Award of Excellence in 2001, being the first golfer and only the third athlete to win this award. He got a Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2005. I can only think of Lieutenant Dan. They gave you a Congressional Medal of Honor. Speaking of, he did get a Congressional Gold Medal in 2015 to go with that Medal of Freedom in '05. He is one of two people to achieve a triple career slam, which is winning all four major championships 3 times in their career, the other being Tiger Woods. He's made 39 consecutive cuts in a major championship, starting in '69 and ending when he finally got cut in '78 at the PGA Championship. This record consecutive cuts made in a major championship was equaled by Tiger Woods in 2006. He is one of two players to finish in the top 5 in all 4 professional major championships in 2 different years. The other being, if you can guess it, Tiger Woods. Now, this really boils down to a simple debate. The man with the most major championships equals the greatest golfer in history. Jack 18, Tiger 15. You can certainly consider some of the points that have been made for Tiger, but bottom line is this. Until Tiger wins, 4 more to pass Nicklaus, he's always just going to be chasing the Golden Bear. And I'll leave you with one quote. You can win all the tournaments you want, but the majors is what you're remembered for. It's how you're measured as a champion in our sport. The majors are where it's at. This is a direct quote from none other than Mr. Tiger Woods.
Wait a minute, time out. How did I fail to mention the greatest sports video game of all time? Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2005. I need to be shot for not mentioning that. Somebody's out there cussing me out right now.
We already addressed the greatest golf game on our Simpsons versus Family Guy episode.
Would you like to continue? You have selected no.
No. Ball is in parking lot.
Well, after hearing the arguments of both sides, there's a lot to consider. When we look at our points, if I did it based purely off the topics, it would go like this. I think the pre-PGA life, while Jack was impressive, Tiger was the prodigy. A 3-year-old Tiger Woods would have made me quit by probably hole 3. So I've got to go with the pre-PGA pretty easily to Tiger. Just because, come on, dude's 3, and was already the prodigy that he ended up fulfilling a lot of that.
I think he was hitting stingers at age 3. He was hitting those 2-iron stingers at age 3. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Thinking 3 years old. Like my son will be 3 next July, and he ain't never even picked up a golf club. Not less shoot a 48. Was that what he shot at 3? Tiger did.
Yeah, 51. Shot 51.
51.
My daughter has told me she wants to play golf when I've tried to talk her into playing soccer and t-ball, because she thinks you just stand there and hit a ball. So she thinks that's what she wants to do. But I've told her maybe when she's older, she's 6, and Tiger was 3. So definitely pre-PGA. I'm going Tiger. Strengths and weaknesses, they're 2 different games, and I'm not going to say one game is better than the other. I mean, it's 2 different philosophies. Do you want a long drive, or do you want to be clutch close? One is one is the other, and I'm nowhere near a golf enough aficionado to say which one is better. So I'm going to consider that a wash. When we look at the major performances, I've got to say Jack. Jack has more first place, more second place. Jack is synonymous with majors, so I've got to go Jack. When I look at level of competition, while I agree the field right now is probably the strongest field that has ever been, Tiger's won once against this field, whereas Jack played a competitive field the entire time. I've got to go Jack there. And up to this point, I've got to go Jack on legacy. So if we did it completely by the points, it would be Jack, but we're not looking at completely by the points here. We're looking at the totality of the circumstances. To throw in a legal term that nobody listening to the show will understand, but it makes Elrod smile. So we're looking at everything, and I'm not giving equal weight to everything here. A lot of it comes down to this. If we're talking the best at their best, I think it's Tiger. I think Tiger in his prime, I would take over Jack in his prime. If we're talking about longevity and consistency, it's Jack. He did it for a long time, and of course, Tiger just recently coming off a very, very long drought that took Elrod a decade to win $20 on a bet we made 10 years ago that he finally got to cash in on last year.
Do you want to know how many times during that decade that I truly thought I was dead in the water? When I made that bet with you, I thought that was the surest bet ever made in the history of anything. But toward the middle, I'm like, this was the dumbest bet anyone has ever made.
Just to let our listeners and viewers know, after the Tiger debacle with his ex-wife, I said then Tiger Woods will never win another major. Elrod called me crazy and told me to put a bet on it. So we put a bet on what, 6-1 odds on a $20 bet?
10-1. It was 10-1.
10-1 odds on a $20 bet that Tiger would never win another major. And that held for 10 years before Tiger won one last year, and I paid Elrod $20.
It was tears of joy, not really just because Tiger won, but this was a long time coming in terms of the bet.
But anyway, there was a massive drought in Tiger's career. So for the longevity and consistency, it's got to be Jack. Obviously, as we've said, Tiger's book's still being written. Maybe Tiger comes out here this weekend and just blows away all these young bucks and wins, comes back in a few months, wins it again, then goes to Torrey Pines, wins it again, and ties Jack. Maybe that happens. Maybe that doesn't. And Elrod, I got to say, I don't know if you meant to do it, but in your closing arguments, you used a lot of ifs. If Tiger does that, if Tiger does that.
But if you're deciding this on the majors, which I think I thought that you would put a majority of the weight on the majors. And if you look at it right now, it's Jack. But we'll see.
There's a lot of weight on the majors. But here's the thing. Jack's was more consistent. Jack was there longer. Maybe Tiger at Tiger peak better than Jack. But Tiger at Tiger peak didn't have the level of competition that Jack had in his career. And I'll say this. If Tiger against this field now can tie and even surpass Jack, this is going to be the first decision in the history of this show that could change. It's still an open book. Maybe we revisit this in a year or two and I change my decision, but my decision as of today in 2020, before the weird November Masters, Tiger versus Jack. Bennett, you have convinced me it's Jack Nicklaus, but that is open for revision in the future.
I feel like this debate's not done. This will be revisited at some point. It might be another 10 years, but we'll come back to it.
And that's the big thing, Rod. You talk about how stacked the field is now, and it is. There's no disagreeing with that. Tiger's won one major against this field.
Fair enough.
But if he racks up a few more, if he can tie Jack in this environment, I may give it to Tiger on a tie. If he passes Jack, then there we go. But, Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, Tom Watson in his prime. I mean, if we want to be fair, Tiger played against Tom Watson a lot too. But it was how old was Tom then?
The crazy thing is in the early 2000s, after Tiger completed the Tiger Slam, I remember there being some Tiger get to 30 major championships. Yeah, it was inevitable that he was going to beat Jack. And it's just a crazy thing with history that didn't really turn out that way.
But another thing that I found ironic, and this is maybe he's kicked out, maybe it's over, but you talked about Tiger with his mental clutchness. It was at one time. I feel like, and the reason I made that bet 10 years ago, when all that happened in his fall from grace, his mental clutch was gone.
And for the
For a
better
decade.
part of this decade,
Yeah.
previous decade, it was. He just did not bring it in the major championships.
So,
But he wrote a lot of wrongs last year at Augusta, coming back. The only championship that he's ever come back from behind, by the way.
very true. Because I wrote him off because he'd never won a championship if he wasn't leading going into Sunday until that day. So, all right, guys. Well, Bennett, you got a victory speech of any sort?
A little bit. I'll make it quick. This turned out to be one of my favorite episodes, and I'll tell you why. Because, of course, we all grew up watching Tiger, so we knew quite a bit about Tiger and his game. I knew that Jack was an all-time great, and I knew that he was one of the best. But when I really started researching this just to see how great he was, it was very interesting to see how great he was and some of the comparisons that he has with Tiger. I mentioned a lot of times, there was only two people that did this, him and Tiger. Two people to do this, him and Tiger. So yeah, it was very interesting. I had a lot of fun doing the research on that one.
I do not concede.
Well, that's how things go today. But the decision's final, whether you concede or not. So with that being said, that will be it. Again, guys, we won't be back we won't be recording for 2 weeks. You guys will not miss a show. We've got one coming up for you next week. It'll be Off the Cuff 2, and that one goes off the rails quick.
You don't want to miss that one.
No,
Or you might want to miss it. I don't know. Depends on.
I'm pretty sure Elrod fell asleep in the middle of recording that.
I did. I think you'll see me passed out.
So,
Yeah.
But it was fun, and it'll be fun for you. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and we already know the topic. We might as well just tell them. That is going to be the week of the big Mike Tyson comeback. And we're going to look at another showdown of kind of what we grew up on versus historically. We're going to look at the best heavyweight boxer. And we're going to look at what would happen if it was Mike Tyson versus the Louisville Lip, Muhammad Ali. And that one is going to be a lot of fun. But again, next week, Off the Cuff, by the time we're back talking boxing, there's going to be a tiny human living in my house. So we're looking forward to that, and we look forward to get back with you guys. Thanks for joining us again. Check out the socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. That's where we'll be. For Mr. Bennett, Mr. Elrod, I'm Andy Rutherford. We will see you guys next time. And until then, peace.